Hello everyone, I'm Amanda Lynett. I'm going to talk to you about Gut Matters 101, how the gut works in relation to food, nutrition basics. Next. So the overview of what I'll be covering includes gaining a better understanding of nutrition basics, macronutrients, micronutrients, and then recognizing the relationship between different nutrients and GI symptoms. Next. All right, so what is nutrition? Nutrition is nourishment. It's how our body affects, or how food affects our body and helps the body function to stay healthy. It's the process of taking food to use it to help with our growth, metabolism, repair. It's what keeps us going every day. I think sometimes people don't actually know what nutrition means, and it's kind of incorporating all the things we put into our body to help our body function. Next. So these nourishments or nutrition are made up of 3 macronutrients that provide energy and calories to sustain life. And I will briefly go into each of the 3 main nutrients. Next. So the first is proteins. Proteins is one of the macronutrients that we need every day to be consuming. Amino acids are building blocks that make up proteins, and if you think of a string of beads, these are the little amino acids that make up the protein, and they help with growth, maintenance, and repair of body's tissues. So you think of muscle growth when you eat a lot of protein. It also helps with hair, nail, and skin growth. And then protein also helps with repairing damaged muscles and helps immune cells fight infections and inflammation. So protein also helps with the role of synthesis and maintaining enzyme and hormones such as digestive enzyme. So a good example of how this relates to the GI tract is proteins help lactase digest the sugar lactose. So like I had mentioned, our body needs to be consuming it daily. Next. So this is just a little picture to remind you of all the different protein sources. You can get it from animal foods such as beef, chicken, pork, wild game, seafood, eggs, but you can also get it from non-meat sources, lentils, seeds, legumes, different nuts, and soybeans. It's important to get a variety of sources of protein to make up your diet. Next. So the next would be fat. Fat is known for providing energy reserves, and then it also helps with structural and protection. And then fats also aid in absorption of fat-soluble vitamins, A, D, E, and K. So fats help vitamin A maintain healthy eyes would be a good example of this. Next. So here's some examples of fats. You got some oils, your animal sources provide healthy fats, nuts, dairy products, coconut, seeds. Next. So the last of the macronutrients would be your carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are kind of like gas in a car. It provides the energy to go throughout the day. So you have carbohydrates that help maintain fuel, energy, growth, and regulate indigestion of food. So just like those proteins, we have different sugars that are building blocks to make carbohydrates, as we had amino acids as building blocks to make up proteins. So once we run out of these carbohydrates, that's when our body uses those fat sources. As I said, were energy reserves. So carbohydrates can be made up of different building blocks to categorize them into simple sugars and then complex carbs. So these simple carbohydrates include monosaccharides, disaccharides, oligosaccharides, polyols. Some examples you've probably heard of would be things like your fructose, glucose, lactose, sucrose, and sorbitol are just a few examples of these simple carbohydrates. And then the long chain carbohydrates include foods such as starches and dietary fiber. And these are more of those complex carbs. So starches include foods such as peas, corn, potatoes, lima beans, as well as like dried beans and lentils. And then fiber is a big role in our digestion and can affect GI conditions. So I will talk more about this in a minute. Next. So here are just some sources of carbohydrates. We have foods such as corn, plantains, rice, tortillas, potatoes, oats, some root vegetables, and fruit. Next. All right, so let's get a little bit more into fiber because this is really important with GI conditions. So according to the National Academy of Science, Engineering, and Medicine, dietary fiber is not broken down into glucose and goes straight through the body undigested, while functional fiber is non-digestible carbohydrates that have a beneficial physiological effect in humans. I think this chart is a nice way to kind of break it up for you into three different categories that are easy to understand. It's solubility, firmability, and viscosity. So solubility is based on the fiber's solubility in water, while viscosity refers to the gel formation in the intestinal tract that helps like thicken up the stool if you have really loose stools and increase bowel transit time. So viscous fiber sources would include berries, bananas, oats, and psyllium. Firmability is often, known as prebiotics, which is used by the gut bacteria to reduce the short-chain fatty acids, and it helps aid in the diverse microbiome that everyone's trying to achieve. Soluble, fermentable, and non-viscous fibers are found to cause abdominal pain, bloating, and flatulence. And as you see here in the chart, this would be that second row. So that would be things such as chicory root, onion, artichokes, cooked and cooled potatoes, and pasta. So individuals should try to kind of aim to get a variety of these different fiber sources incorporated into their diet to help, maintain a healthy gut. But being aware of the different properties, the solubility, the firmability, the viscosity, are kind of referring back to this chart to kind of help you better understand what could cause different symptoms. A good example would be increasing your soluble fiber would help with reducing urgency or frequency of loose stools. So if you have a lot of diarrhea, you might want to increase your soluble fiber sources as you see listed on the chart. Next. All right, so now that I kind of went over the macronutrients, I will briefly touch on micronutrients. So micronutrients are part of the macronutrients in the sense that they're in food. They don't actually provide calories, but they're critical part of keeping the body operating optimally. So they kind of help aid in energy production, building protein and bones, making collagen. They help with immunity, eye and skin health, and they're categorized in two ways. You have the fat-soluble and water-soluble vitamins. So the fat-soluble are your A, D, E, and K, and then your water-soluble are all your B vitamins. So there's a variety of them, and then vitamin C. The interesting thing about vitamins is that cooking and storage can decrease their nutritional value. There was a study that found that like vitamin C was most peak optimal nutritional value was at harvest. So you want to try to kind of eat a variety of fresh, frozen, canned fruits and vegetables to get all those nutrients at their max amounts, and to try to buy them frequently and often rather than buying lettuce and leave it in your fridge for 3 weeks. As it wilts, it will lose its vitamin C content. Next. So minerals, on the other hand, are a little more resilient. They're unlike vitamins in their chemical structure. They will hold their structure, but they're more variable based on where the food is grown based off of the soil and the water. So food produced in California is going to be different than food produced in India because of the soil and water differences, contents of the minerals. But minerals' main role would be helping with the regulation of water within the body. So those minerals include sodium, chloride, and potassium. But some of the other jobs that minerals have include skeletal structure and obviously cardiovascular health. So you've heard about people, needing good phosphorus, potassium. Those are all important parts of our diet. Next. All right, so why is knowing the basics of nutrition important? So understanding these basic tools of the macronutrients and micronutrients and knowing where food is digested will help you choose foods that to reduce symptoms, but also promote overall health. So the goal is to maximize energy, growth, and cell repair through a combination of all the nutrients while decreasing your GI symptoms. I wanted to touch base on the micronutrients and the different vitamins and minerals because if you are told that you're deficient in any of these micronutrients, you should probably ask a healthcare professional before starting any supplementation. Micronutrients can interact with one another, or they can compete with medications for absorption or one another for absorption. Very commonly, a good example would be that vitamin C helps with the absorption of iron. So you want to take those two together. But at the same token, calcium inhibits the absorption of iron. So you don't want to take your vitamin C and your iron supplement while you're also taking your multivitamin or drinking a big glass of milk, because they're going to all compete for absorption. All right, next. All right, so with IBS, you have those short chain, rapidly fermentable carbohydrates. So that's commonly heard as the low FODMAP diet. And that's when you would want to reduce your intake of those, as I had previously discussed, for helping with IBS. Another example would be with patients with exocrine pancreatic insufficiency. You have the fat-soluble vitamins that you could be deficient in, and that's because your body is malabsorbing fat, so therefore it can't absorb those nutrients and you're losing them. Another good example when I was talking about that fiber slide would be fiber varieties and types. So a reduction in your insoluble fiber is sometimes recommended for people with intestinal strictures because those are things that can get caught up in the GI tract and worsen symptoms. All right, next. All right, that's all. Thank you.